Today's episode is brought to you by Dojo Outfitters. Go to dojooutfitters.com and use code DOJO2 to save 10% on your next order.
Give me a little countdown.
Dojo Outfitter family, what's going on? Welcome back to the show. Today we got my boy Kevin Hughes. Kevin, what's up, man?
Man, just stoked to be here. Stoked to check out this awesome facility. Be here with my man Chicken Bone. So why do we call you Chicken Bone?
Dude, I actually got the nickname at a party. It was a going away party, and I took a picture with my favorite word, 3 senseis. I had like some senseis with me, and they were all big dudes.
Right.
And my one sensei, Andy, the head of the shop here, goes, "Man, look at this little chicken bone."
Gotcha.
And then everyone like was like, ah ha ha. They all laughed, and it was like, well, hey, it's better than like Joe Dirt or something. You know what I mean?
And it's a jiu-jitsu nickname. It was given to you by your sensei.
I was good.
And what's cool about that, for me as well, is like the Kev Nasty thing. Like that's an Orchard quote. Right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't just go around in normal life calling myself Kev Nasty, but there's something about when your instructor says nasty.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember asking him when I was a purple belt, I was like, yo, what's up with the Kev Nasty thing? Like, is this good? And he's like, your game is filthy. I'm like, is that good?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, you find these headspaces where you're a constant attacker, and that's nasty. That's like that person. And so it's kind of cool in a way because you get to be a caricature of yourself, and you get to have that personality that you can find when is necessary in competition, but you don't have to live your life like Kev Nasty, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have to tell a cringe story.
A cringe story about me?
No.
Okay.
It's about me, but with you. You're in the story.
Okay, gotcha.
So one of the first times I ever met you, it was at 10th Planet. It was at the old location.
Foster spot.
The one on Foster.
Right.
Yeah.
So post Rose City days.
I'm a white belt. Like a white belt. Maybe I've been training a year, maybe a year. And I was rolling with everyone. And so I say to you before the roll, hey man, try and I can't remember. I either said leg lock me or ankle lock me.
What you said, you're like, hey man, I'm getting ready for a sub league this weekend. The only leg locks that are allowed in my bracket are straight ankle locks. Would you roll with me and only straight ankle lock me? And I'm like, certainly.
Well, boy, was that either like a mistake. It was probably not at that time, probably a mistake, but in the long run, what a great idea by me.
Right. Well, wasn't it your goal to better cope with straight ankle locks?
Yeah, but at the time I didn't know who you were.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and I just asked like one of the nastiest leg lockers to attack my legs.
What's interesting about that in particular with straight ankle locks is I've been training for about 8 months, and I was training under Andrew Alexander, 10th Planet Grants Pass.
Yeah.
And I was a white belt, and I'm getting ready for my first Gracie Nationals. And in the white belt division, there's no submissions below the waist. It's all arm bars and strangles and whatnot. And I get promoted to blue belt a month before Gracie Nationals. And I'm like, Coach, what am I going to do? I don't know any leg locks. And he's like, just focused on one leg lock, one finishing position. And for me, like I'm 5'9", and I compete at 145, so I kind of have a bit of leverage. And so straight ankle locks were my go-to. Like I figured them out really quickly. And I think I hit 1 or 2 that day at Gracie Nationals. And that year, that was 2015, I hit 12 to 15 straight ankle locks. So it was already something I was actually pretty decent at.
Yeah.
I kind of figured it out early on. So when you came to me and said that, I was like, something in the universe just brought us together for this moment, and we're gonna have a relationship from this one. Like this is gonna be good for both of us.
No, it was good for me. It was good for me. I actually forgot about that story, and I like forgot that I even said that to you. Like now, I would never say that to someone.
I didn't forget.
And when you told me. I actually want to tell another story too. When you reminded me of that story, it was a Friday night open mat, and we had just rolled, and it was like so one-sided. It was so one-sided.
You were beating me up?
No. Respectfully, respectfully, obviously, like you're very, very, very talented, and I'm kind of like on the sidelines. After it, we both took the next round off after it, and I kind of got my like head down a little bit, and I look at you and I go, man, I just never think I'm going to be a good training partner for you. And you looked at me and said, man, you reminded me of the story from a long time ago.
Right.
And you were like, man, I used to get you 10 times, you know? And now it's like, it's hard to get you once or twice.
Right.
And it made me feel, bro, like, it was such a, like, man, that was such a nice thing for you to say.
Well, I mean, the thing is it's just the truth. Like, there's going to be a lot of small battles won along the way, and sometimes it's just fending a guy off one extra time. He tapped you 4 times that night instead of 5 times, and when you're in that, it's harder to see the bigger picture of how much growth there is involved in this. You're just standing face to face with this image, and you don't see the big picture yet. And when you say things like, I'm never going to be a good training partner with that guy, that's not accurate at all, because you're never a punching bag. Like, even that time where we rolled and I ankle locked you, you had to give me the right look for me to find those positions, right? So it's not like you're just a punching bag getting beat up, you're holding the mitts for me. So that's still a good training partner. I got reps, you got reps on a couple taps, and you got ready for sub league. And what's worse? Getting tapped in the gym by a guy who's your friend, or going to sub league and getting straight ankle locked
By a random, yeah.
by a random.
Yeah.
Some guy who's thrilled, thrilled to tap you. He's gonna be on the podium celebrating.
Dude, take me. I know we kind of got off, but like, take me back to even when you started. Like, what even got you into jiu-jitsu?
So what got me into jiu-jitsu was being around a lifetime martial artist, and that's my dad. My dad actually did Kimbo karate and American karate back, when he was like my age, so like 30 years ago. And it was something that he kind of continued the path of always being a martial artist even after he stopped training, right? So growing up in my garage, it was like a full dojo. There's like mats and bags and mitts and gloves and all sorts of stuff. So I was always around it. And because of that, I was pretty deeply entrenched into MMA for not being a fighter. But I always liked the grappling aspect of it. I think it's because my dad was like this big, strong guy, very powerful guy. And I'm like, well, man, I'm way smaller than him. I'm not, right? I'm not 6'3", 230. I'm not throwing these turning side kicks and high kicks like Crow Cop and stuff. So I'm like, the grappling seems to make more sense to me. And what actually happened was, we're sitting at a friend's house the summer before freshman year, and we were playing Fight Night, the boxing game on PlayStation 2. And I don't remember who was winning, but we had kind of gotten upset with each other that one person was winning. And we're like, cool, let's just play tap out, right? We didn't know what jiu-jitsu necessarily was. We're like, let's play tap out. And so I'm like, cool. I grew up in a pretty tough town, so a lot of my friends were wrestlers and things like that. And I go first round with this kid, and he picks me up in a double leg, and I instinctively threw a guillotine on him. And as he slammed me, his head hit the ground before I did. So the impact went to his head, and then now I'm like guillotining him. And I remember being kind of shocked. I was like, you're gonna tap? And he was like, no, bitch, and taps. And I'm like, whoa, I can do this. I'm capable of this. And yeah, so I had that match, and then I went against the next guy, and it was a terrible rear naked choke, but I rear naked choked him. And then the next guy I went against was also a friend who was there, and we went for a long time. Nobody tapped either person, but I had my ears pierced, or I did at the time, and they were bleeding, right? They were bleeding from all the wrestling. And I took them out, and I was like, all right, no more earrings and stuff. I'm training jiu-jitsu. I need to make my body equipped for this. Does that kind of give you a little bit? Yeah, so that was like kind of the first glimpse of like me actually being capable of it. And I think it was right around the time that YouTube started. And I would go on YouTube and I'd just type like fight, like street fight, grappling. And this video popped up, and it was like Aikido master dominates all styles of martial arts. And I'm like, I heard my dad say Aikido before. I didn't really know what it was. And so I start watching it, and it's a guy in a gi, and he's like strangling people and tapping them. And it was Hoist Gracie. It was just, it's early YouTube days, so the videos weren't labeled correctly. And it's Hoist Gracie. So I watched that. And I found this video of Ginki Sudo. It's called Ginki Sudo West Side Tournament. And he was an OG MMA guy. He was in the UFC back then. And he has like 10 matches in this video. And he runs through everybody. And he has a very like dynamic movement style. And I was like, cool, I want to do that one day. So yeah, that pretty much put me in the direction of focusing on the grappling aspect of watching fights. I didn't understand the standalone
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu world. I just watched fights in particular to see grappling.
So where was the first place you trained then?
The first place I actually trained in a gym was 10th Planet Grants Pass with Andrew Alexander. And I had gotten really into the idea of training, but never quite made the commitment to step foot inside a gym. And I was always fearful of the thought that if I only went to an MMA gym to do grappling, they would think I was like a pussy or something. Like I didn't want to fight. I just wanted to grapple. So I was always worried about that, making that commitment, because we know, stepping into a gym in the beginning is intimidating, right?
Dude, sometimes it's intimidating to go to class even after you've been going for years.
Right. You could not go for a week, and like as you're showing up to the gym, you're getting that like nervous feeling.
Yeah.
Right.
I get a nervous feeling on the drive-in sometimes.
Yeah, you kind of get that when you've been away for a while. So yeah, I grew up with a friend who was training jiu-jitsu pretty regularly. He'd been training for a couple years, and he knew that I was into rubber guard. I liked the look of rubber guard because I just thought, like the flexibility, the dexterity, the strength in your legs, it made a lot of sense to me, right? And it looked cool. Frankly, I thought it looked cool. So I was really into rubber guard. And one day he came to my spot, and I was once again on YouTube typing Eddie Bravo rubber guard. And he comes in and sees what I'm doing, and he goes, "Hey man, if you really like Eddie Bravo's rubber guard, you should look up his student named Nathan Orchard. He's his brand new black belt." And this was February 2014, so I think Orchard had just gotten his black belt in January. And I didn't know that there was even a 10th Planet in Grants Pass or in Southern Oregon. I thought Portland was the only location in Oregon. So I went on the 10th Planet website, and I looked at the locations, and I saw 10th Planet Grants Pass. And I thought, there's no way that can't be real. And so I texted my friend, and he didn't reply, right? The one who would kind of push me in the direction of 10th Planet, he didn't reply. And so I messaged Andrew, and I went out and took my first class, and it wasn't even a class, man. Like, he showed up to the gym on Saturday at noon because that's the time I asked, and I didn't even drill. He just showed me a bunch of techniques. He just kind of showed me, like, what I could be capable of, and he showed me, like, a dead orchard and a Hindu lutein and a bunch of rubber guard stuff.
I read that on your post, that your first ever day of training, you got shown the dead orchard.
Very first day of training.
Which is so crazy.
Well, it's not actually that crazy, because the co-head instructor of the gym, the person who Andrew was working with at the time, was a blue belt under Nathan Orchard. And Andrew had actually started under Nathan Orchard before Nathan moved to Portland. At least that's what I believe. So it was already kind of like a big submission, but little did we know that it was going to fit my body so well. And kudos to Andrew as a blue belt at the time to recognize my body type and what would end up being one of my most powerful submissions.
So also on that post, we'll go a little bit of a breakdown. You talk about hitting an overhook,
right,
and how important that is. Talk to me about the importance of that.
Well, I think the importance of the overhook just comes from Jean-Jacques Machado. Jean-Jacques Machado was born with the congenital disorder of, I believe, his left hand. And so, he's not gripping the gi. He's not reliant on the same grip. So he's using so many overhooks, which obviously, being Eddie Bravo's instructor, led to the overhooks and the fundamental or early stages of rubber guard. So for me, I think also with that orchard influence, like strong overhook user, I think it was just natural in my game. Immediately just over wrapping, getting control of the person, breaking their posture down, pulling them into New York or rubber guard, know?
Yeah. So when did you make the move to Portland to go under Phil and Nathan? Yeah,
so I got my blue belt after training for, I think, 9 months. I think it was right around that time. And it was 9 consistent months of training. I actually didn't live in Grants Pass. I lived in a small town on the outskirts of the Rogue Valley. So I was driving 35 miles each way. I was making a bit of a commitment, and I was still training 5 or 6 days a week, every class I could get to. So, I got to blue belt pretty quick, and I didn't really want to do that drive anymore. And I also was kind of over the small town thing. I grew up in a town of like less than 10,000 people. So the idea of going to the city to me was like pretty cool, right? And, with Nathan Orchard, I was like, all right, well, this guy's like a black belt, and he's doing it at the highest level. It seems like a good place to look to consider to train, I didn't know it would end up being like family, right? So I made the commitment. I think I just messaged Nathan and was like, yo man, like, you know, when we were white belts and we were just like Facebook messaging people, and I'm like, yo man, you moved from a similar area. He actually is from Grants Pass, so he's also from a small town. And I was like, man, it looks like it's been working out well for you. So what's that transition been like? And he was so nice, like, oh man, I'll help you with a job or whatever you need. You can plug right into the team. And so I basically went on that message, like, that was it. You know what I mean? The girl I was dating at the time, we just packed up our stuff and pretty much left to go train.
That's so cool. I want to bring up, once you said blue belt, it reminded me of a story that you once told, and maybe you can give some advice, because this doesn't happen to everyone. It definitely didn't happen to me, but sometimes people would say things to you, like, what's the right way to say this? Like,
just lay it on me.
They would make excuses to why you were submitting them.
Oh, gotcha.
Like you were a blue belt, but you were like, oh, he's a blue belt, but
he just leg locked me. And I think that, to be honest with you, I think that still is going to be part of our culture. Like, there's always going to be people who think that leg locks or certain submissions are less creditable than, you know, taking the back and putting a strangle on. But frankly, I'm like, if I made you tap, like, it doesn't matter if it's a crank or if it's a choke or if it's an ankle lock. Like, if you tap, like, that's what we agreed to, right? We're going to combat until one of us makes the decision to tap. So I never let that bother me, man. And frankly, for me, I was like, it's cool because I'm going to competitions as a blue belt and I'm tapping purple and brown belts because seems like they're not as developed in this place. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, you know, it's not necessarily a great idea to just focus in one direction, but God, you have to have something that is your thing that you tap people with. And if you just went to the gym every day and you didn't tap anybody, like, you know, you're just, it's like sadomasochist, you know? So
that'd be, I couldn't keep going back.
You never tapped anybody. You're like, man, actually, when I signed up for my first competition ever, I don't think I'd ever tapped anybody. Like, I did in the time from signing up to competing, but I was about a month into training, and my coach was just like, hey, want to do this sub-league tournament in Portland in a month? And I'm like, yeah. Like, I've never tapped anybody, right? I've never tapped anybody, but sure, I'll go do that. And I didn't tap anybody at the competition either. I had all draws.
Dude, it took me a long time to get a tap.
In competition or in training?
No, actually, in competition, it was easy.
Why is that?
I don't have no clue. I think because I was in, like, the older bracket. But as a white belt, I was undefeated. It was either draw. I never lost at white belt.
But you had draws.
But I had draws.
Did you have any draws that you didn't win?
They were never really. Not really. I never felt like I really, like. I don't know. I felt like. It was competing at over 30 at white belt is weird.
Why is that?
Just because it's like you never know who you're gonna get.
Gotcha.
Like, you might just get a random guy who's gonna quit next week, or you might get, like, you know, a lot of people who start after 30. I don't know are like ever gonna be world champions.
Right, and they might not even consider competing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What's interesting in the beginning as well, I would go to a sub league or like a local tournament, and I'm competing at like 140 pounds. But every single dude in that place looks like my potential opponent. Yeah. Like, he's like 6'5", 230. I'm like, how much did he cut? You know what I mean? And it's like I feel like we personalize that experience so much that we're like, I'm the only one who feels nervous. I'm the only one competing today. I'm the only one who's been training for 2 years. You're like, dude, that guy has been, you know, unless he's sandbagging, he's been training the same amount of time. He probably has a job too. He's probably nervous too. He probably doesn't even train as much as you do, but we get so in our own head of our potential result that it can be kind of crippling in a way, you know?
Dude, for sure. That's what happened to me at blue belt.
So after your undefeated record,
I got shit on at blue belt. Like, I did so bad Just because like for me it's the nervousness, and then it's the fact that it's hard for me. Like I'm typically like a nice person, so for me it's hard to like get into the mode where it's like, you know, like I got to get physical with this
chicken
guy.
bone.
And yeah,
That's chicken bone.
Yeah.
Chicken bone's a mean motherfucker. It's different. You know, it's different. It's important. And that's true, you know? We're like, yo, like, and if you don't have that experience and you're like, look, this guy's also a new person to jiu-jitsu. He probably loves it just as much as me. He's got a job and a family. Like, I don't want to hurt this guy.
Right.
But at the same time, like, that's what's beautiful about this. We all made the decision that there's a safe word.
Yeah.
Tap.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do is tap. It doesn't matter anything else that happens before or after that. Like, you just tap when it's time to tap, and that's your responsibility. So we can't put the pressure on ourselves. We have to apply our techniques correctly and give a person an opportunity to tap, but that's their decision.
So tell me, what's your mindset going into competition, and tell me these days too, because now you're a seasoned competitor. So like, what works best for you to like get into the zone to get to Kev Nasty?
Right. So for me, obviously it's the training. Clearly it's the training, and getting the training as close to what the competition is going to feel like is very important. Like structuring it in the exact same way, the same time of day, the same bodies, the same rule set. I feel like it's going to be very important just to make you feel comfortable. But as far as the competition prep goes, I do kind of go through like a little like a routine, right? In a way.
Can you talk about the routine a little?
Yeah,
do you mind?
Yeah, no, and I don't think it's not like anything secretive or like, you know, just my personal thing. For me, competition is moving meditation. So the sooner I can get myself into my body and into my movement and less into my like that decision making, like what's next? What do I do here? What do I do there? The more I can just get past that and let my body just move and flow, typically the better I do. Now I understand you can't go so deep into that you're, you know, making poor decisions as well. But for me, a good warm up, get my lungs open, whether that's like a little bit of sprinting or movement. And then I like to drill stuff that I don't have to think about. Like just let me put you in my guard and rep a couple of dead orchards. Like I might not dead orchard anybody that day, but I have my 10,000 reps on that technique, so I don't need to think about it. And that further kind of internalizes me into my body. And then, you know, I'll go through like a little mantra sometimes, you know? And I feel like when we're prepping for a competition, it's nice to have like that validation from like our coach or our instructor. So I'm like, you'll see me, I have like my sweats on, I'm walking around, I'm like, he's a certified assassin. Like he's a certified assassin. And that's from when I got my purple belt from Nathan and Phil. They're having like a little back and forth, and Nathan was like, this next guy's a certified assassin. And I didn't assume it was me, certified assassin.
You were like, not me.
Not me. Better luck next time, Kev, you know? And so things like that help, you know? Like, I mean, and everybody probably has a routine that's somewhat similar, but for me, it's like, get warm, get my lungs open, get that confidence in me, and, you know, a little bit of weed, you know, that stuff seems to definitely help you kind of find that flow state. I know people are into like microdosing mushrooms and things like that. Just small amounts to just kind of get you in that flow. And the last time I competed was in February for CJJ Trials down in LA at HQ. Yeah. Eddie's gym, you know. And that one was interesting because I was so physically prepared that I didn't need that mantra in my head. Like, I'm confident going into this. So instead I did something different. I was like thinking of all the times where I hadn't felt like that. All the times where I'd felt scared or felt weak or not felt powerful or brave. And remembered what that felt like, and then really just accepted how I felt now and let that feed it. And that to me was actually even healthier, because it was like, look, I've been scared and weak and I've been confident and strong. This is how I feel now. Let's go capitalize on it and ultimately just have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Once I started having fun, because I'm still not having fun, but once I started like caring less, it's been more fun for me. And Jamie always helps me. He's like my like head coach whenever I compete, and so we've gotten into a place where it's like I hated warming up. Like I was always worried. Like the worst feeling for me is when you're tired and underneath someone heavy, and I just was like, I just don't want to be tired. And so forever, I wouldn't warm up. But then it got to the point where it was like, it made me feel weird if I didn't warm up.
That's interesting because I think that you'll get less tired if you get warmed up. And to take a step back, actually what is interesting is, it's Friday night. It's like Friday night. This is like our time where normally we'd be having these conversations mat side at open mat. So if you see how I treat those sessions, you'll see that it's very similar to how I would treat a competition. I show up to open mat with my sweats on, I get myself warm, I flow roll, I do all the things that are gonna put me into that headspace so that an hour into that rolling session, I'm gone. Like, I don't remember who I rolled with, how those movements went. Now, I like to film that stuff as well so that I can, go back later on and study it. But you'll see that I actually practice that every week. So I actually had the thought one time, I was like, man, I could just compete every week instead of doing open mat. But, open mat's a good time. It's
Dude, open mat is so fun. All right, so, take me back. This has got to be one of your coolest moments competing in jiu-jitsu. It was, right before COVID, I think. You hit this guy with a flying scissor takedown.
Connie Bassami.
Kanye Pastrami.
So are you saying last year at Grappling Industries? Is that what you're talking about?
That's the one, right?
Yeah, that's the one. So what was interesting is that we actually don't practice Connie Bassami's in training at our gym. It's something, we have maybe since then, but it's not like, we're not doing them in rolls.
Yeah.
So it's like something like, I grab one of my students after class, I'm like, yo, I need you to give me this look so I can practice this technique, because we're not allowed to do it, right? It's kind of like a forbidden little technique. And so I knew it was in the chamber for sure, but man, I go to Grappling Industries and I'm sitting on the warm-up mat, sweats on, headphones in, I'm feeling good. I haven't even entered the warm-up, the breathing, the sprinting, the smoking weed, all the things I do, right? And it's about an hour and a half before we're supposed to compete, and shame on me, right, for not expecting that, and kudos to Grappling Industries for being ahead of time. And I just hear, Kevin Hughes to mat 5. I'm like, that's not good.
Must be another Kevin Hughes.
Yeah, it must be another Kevin Hughes, because I have at least an hour and 15 minutes. And so I just stand up. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to start walking to my mat. Okay, I can't warm up. There's not enough time. What can I do? And I remember that I had a pipe loaded in my gear bag. I'm like, cool. So I'm going to smoke this weed inside the venue on the way to the bracket, right? And so I do. I take a couple hits of weed on the way there, and I get there, and it's time to roll right now. And the first guy going against, he wasn't familiar to me. He was a little bit shorter, kind of stocky. And I threw every submission attempt I could at that guy.
And they messed up on the clock too, right?
Right, so they messed up on the clock. So it was supposed to be a 5-minute round, which, that's not really a long time.
Right.
But that kind of comes back to the not warming up. I wasn't warm. I didn't get that warm up in to have a little bit more cardio. So I threw a lot of submission attempts at this guy, and it goes 7.5 minutes. And they raised my hand. I won, but I won by judges' decision or ref's decision. There was no point scored. So 12 submission attempts, not 1 point scored. Dead orchards, go-go clenches, heel hooks, all sorts of stuff. And I'm a bit tired, and I'm like, that kind of didn't really go how I wanted. And so then there's maybe one more match, and then my next match is against Alex Corrales, a tough MMA fighter, good wrestler from Bend, and we go the full distance. He wins by a guard pass. I think he beat me 3-0. He passed my guard, and I got in on his legs. I had some good looks, but he got that one. And then I have two or three more matches, and I tear through all these guys. Like a dead orchard, I'm heel hooking, I'm leg lacing. Now I'm feeling good. I'm warm. Now I'm Kev Nasty now.
Kev Nasty's out.
I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
I'm fresh. And I'm assuming that I must have gotten 3rd or 2nd place or something, just judging by how the bracket went. And they're like, well, we're actually going to do a tiebreaker with your first round opponent. And I'm like, cool, bring him out right now. And I wasn't really feeling that. I was more like, dang, that guy was tough. But I'm like, let's go right now. So the one match ends and the next one starts. And yeah, we come at each other. We kind of make contact, and I feel he's stiff. He feels a little bit stiff, And so I smack him a good one, little collar tie, and he just plants for me. And I'm like, beautiful. So I'm going to do the same thing again. And I just tap him with another one. He plants his feet heavy. Boom, I hit that Connie. And I tapped him really fast. It was 7.5 seconds. And the first match was 7.5 minutes. And so, yeah, I didn't really think that was going to get the response it did online. But like I remember posting it and the next day it was everywhere. Like it spread like wildfire.
Okay, there's a few things that I love about that. The first thing, and it's probably obvious, is the ref's reaction. Like,
So gold.
Is there a better reaction
So good.
than that guy gave? Like that guy, like you could put like the cigarette and like the glasses on that guy.
Did you see I memed him?
Yeah.
I memed him. I'm
Yeah.
like, bro, like every time that video gets shared anywhere online, everybody says like, look at the ref's face. I was like, the ref's face, like checkmate. Like he had it in his look, like he got that one. I don't need to do anything here.
Yeah, my job is done for the day.
Bro, he got paid for that. Like that was easy. You know what I mean?
Dude, that is just you deserve it.
I appreciate that.
You deserve all the love that you get online and everything you deserve. And I'm actually going to tell a story to why you deserve it. I actually saw you get highlighted finished.
Yeah.
I was at Phil put on a tournament
Team submission challenge.
A team submission,
Yes.
and this guy hit you with a flying armbar, and you didn't bitch, you didn't complain, you didn't say anything. You said he got me,
Right.
and it was, dude, you had my respect before then, but like that, like truly, like put me to where it was like, dude, you're like. That's honorable.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone else is gonna make some excuse or bitch or
well, at the end of the day, you have to be honest with yourself. If you can't face yourself and accept your mistakes, then what are you investing all this time into training and trying to better yourself? Like, there's obviously some discrepancy there. So for me, the thing is, yeah, I mean, it was good too. And what's interesting is that finish was very similar to the Ginki Sudo finish that I saw in the video that I liked. Except he went to a triangle, right? So it was actually kind of cool. And it was a good lesson there. And not knowing, like not having the awareness of my space. Like I was right against the edge of the mat. So that was a big mistake. That was to me a big tactical mistake that I learned from, less than a technical mistake. And the other thing is like you have to realize like losing a match, like what do you really lose?
Nothing. Honestly, nothing. If you don't, especially if you don't get hurt.
Right. Yeah. Especially if you do, and that's my point. Like when you lose a match, you lose that one moment, that one exchange, but you didn't lose jiu-jitsu. You didn't lose the urge to come back on Monday morning and come train. You don't lose your focus. You don't lose your passion. So what do you lose, right? It's just a moment in time. Now look, at the highest levels, there's money involved,
right,
and bigger egos and bigger opportunities. But for one like that, I was like, man, like, Orchard came up to me afterwards and he said, sometimes you're just having a little fight with the guy. It seems like a mutual little fight. And then he just pulls out a knife and stabs you. And he just kills you in a way that you never expected. And that's what happened, It's like, it was just straight up highlight reeled.
Yeah. I mean,
but won't be the last time. It wasn't the first time either.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's like, it's sometimes it's like, it's so hard to do that though. You know what I mean? It's hard to get finished like that. And like I remember getting finished with just a regular triangle, and I got up and I yelled the F word, and I was like, what I didn't even need to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you didn't need to do that, but what was the struggle like before you tapped?
It was okay. Like I learned a lot from that too.
So you learned a lot, but were you like in a triangle trying to fight your way out before you tapped?
Yeah, I mean, he had me in the triangle and I was fine, right? It was on, but it wasn't tight. And then he started pulling on my head. And that's
where that fuck is building up. See, for me, I never had a chance, right? It was just, I'm in a roll, having this little battle, boom, I'm getting tapped. And so I didn't have a chance to build any resentment towards the situation other than just a result, and I could go back and objectively look at the result, see the mistakes I made, learn to correct those mistakes, and move forward. I'm back training, and that's what it's all about. Like, you have to just take those results for what they are, put them back into your training, and move forward. The only thing I was mad about is my arm got bent a lot, and that wasn't his fault. It was just that it came on so fast. I hadn't mentally accepted defeat, even though I was physically being tapped. So I'm just like, tap! Oh my gosh, that went way too far.
Yeah. Dude, what's your problem with guys that have hair gel in their hair while they're rolling?
Less about hair gel, man. I don't like when I get on a dude's back and it smells like apple cider vinegar and shit. I'm like on a dude's back and I'm like, man, I don't like that smell, man. It like makes me want to tap you more, right? You're just like, oh, you're like really digging for the choke. Hair? Did I say something about you wearing hair gel?
No, not me. I would never. Now I once heard you say that, and I was like, dude, from that point on, like I always washed my hair before rolling.
Well, that's good. You have good hygiene. But I think what it is I probably said that at an open mat.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm trying to find that person who's like ready to attack things, right? Like ready to look at things to exploit in a person. So I'm probably just talking shit. Like that guy was rolling with hair gel. He didn't even come here to roll. Like he didn't even shower before working here, you know?
Dude, how did you get into floating?
Floating. Okay. Dude, so actually my first jiu-jitsu competition, remember like I said, 2 months into training,
Yeah.
I came to Portland, right, for a little sub-league. And I was in Portland for like 2 or 3 days. And I'm like, cool, I want to do something while I'm here. And so I'm like looking up things to do in Portland that I couldn't do in my town. And I saw Float Tank Center. And I was like, cool, Joe Rogan talks about floating. So what better thing to do before my first jiu-jitsu competition than go float? And so I booked a little float. I didn't really know what to expect, and the experience to me is like I don't exactly remember the full experience, you know, but I liked it. I felt good afterwards. I felt calm. Like I felt like I went in there and got really nervous and thought all about competing, and then when I left I was like, oh, I kind of worked those nerves out. Like I got to experience that before it happened, and now I'm more prepared. And so I was like, okay, there's definitely some good stuff there, and I need to continue doing this. And man, I was like a never take a break type of person. Like I'm always moving, always going hard. So to find something that can just center me and slow me down and make me relax was really good for my development. Just not just jiu-jitsu, but just as a person. Mm-hmm. So yeah, man. And then once I moved to Portland, I was like, cool, I'm going to work at a float tank center. I'm going to teach 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. I'm like, this is going to be my life. Like all those Joe Rogan influences basically became what my little life was like.
So like what? I've never floated before. What's the main benefit that you get from when you do it?
Yeah, so for me, like I said, other than being able to go through the experience before it happens, like think about the training for a competition, the brutal, tough training. You're in a dark place in your mind, but you find strength through it. Like you get to go to that one side of the spectrum and it increases that spectrum, right? Like it pushes you further that way. You got more yang. And then like to be able to find a very relaxing state where you're super comfortable and explore your mind in that, you're like, oh, this is a yin side. Like now I get to see what the most comfortable, luxurious moment feels like in comparison to the most brutal training. And if you're not covering both sides of the spectrum, like you don't get to really fully stretch that spectrum very far.
Yeah, I heard someone say that like if you train hard, you got to recover hard. Mm-hmm. And especially being old, like that older, I shouldn't say old, but being older, you know, my body doesn't recover as good as it used to. So I've gotten way better about making sure that I'm stretching or icing or, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, it's like such a big investment of time into your body. And, you know, our bodies do so many incredible things for us. And it's the least we can do to stretch after class and to put good nutrients into our body and to meditate and to look into things like floating and cryotherapy and sauna. Like there's so many things out there, and frankly, who doesn't want to feel good? Like who doesn't want to live in a healthy body? And especially if you felt what it's not like to be healthy.
Right.
If you felt what it's like to be unhealthy or weak or scared, and then to have the opposite, you're like, I'll accept nothing less now.
Yeah. Dude, I gotta raise it up because I went socks and sandals just for you today.
I love it. I love that the socks and slides is like
socks and slides, yeah.
Socks and slides, yeah. Because socks and sandals, people don't.
No, you don't want to. No, you don't want to do that,
bro. I wouldn't be here.
No, you don't want to do that.
You would have been like, bro, I brought sandals and socks. I'm like, dude, we're gonna have to reschedule.
Today's not a good day.
Yeah. So the socks and slides thing, you know, and there's a few people close to me that have had a little influence in this. But it's just, you know, we drive up to Seattle, we fly to LA, we fly to Arizona, we fly to the East Coast. Doesn't matter the time of year or where we're at. We go do this competition and we leave, and I'm looking down and we're all wearing like socks and slides. And I'm like, it's such like a jujitsu guy thing.
Yeah.
You know, we're out in like downtown Seattle in the winter and we're wearing socks and slides. So for me, I'm like, don't take yourself so seriously for one thing. Like if you can wear ducks on your socks and like still be a badass and you've got issues, right? But it's just, to me, it's like kind of symbolic of that world. This is like Friday night open mat, you know, socks and slides.
Dude, I see socks and slides and I think about you.
That's good.
Yeah. Whenever I see socks and slides, I just instantly go to you. I'm like, they're Kevin Hughes in this right now. Who do you think you are?
There was actually a point in time where people were tagging me in these posts, like quite consistently. They would like be at a competition and they would like take a picture of their feet and be like, socks and slides at Kevin Hughes. And then they'd go hit Dead Orchards and stuff that day. You know what I mean? They would like do well.
Yeah.
They would do well, you know, that have like standout performances.
I mean, what else would you expect?
I wouldn't expect anything less.
You couldn't.
Right?
Yo, before we get you out of here, I do want to say, or not say, but you had some big news the last weekend or the weekend before?
Yeah, a few weeks back.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is no longer a man who's going to be eligible.
Recently engaged.
Recently engaged.
And I love it, man. It's incredible. It really is. And to be honest with you, I didn't think that there would really like feel like a difference, but there's such a difference. And yeah, man, I'm 29 and I've always kind of felt like 29. I'm like, man, I'm old already, right? But when you make the commitment to someone that you're going to spend your life with them, you feel so young again.
Yep.
You're like, I'm 29. I have my entire life ahead of me with this person. Like, there's so much more opportunity out there now. So yeah, dude, it's fun. I'm super happy, and I can honestly say that Amy is the best thing that's come to my life through jiu-jitsu.
Oh. Oh. Hey, Amy.
Yeah.
Hi from the Dojo Outfitters podcast.
You know what's funny is I say hi from a lot of places. Like I did the team duel at HQ in December, December of last year, and in that format, it's like you go against a person, and if you tap them, you just get another person right away. It's open weight, right? And so I go against a person, and then I go against another person, and then the third match I have a draw, and I would just walk right to the camera like, "Hi, Amy." And at the moment, I was like just trying to shout out my girl. But then I watched that back and the guy's like limping. Like in the background, he's like limping and I just like stormed by him. I'm like, it didn't quite translate the way I wanted it to. But the sentiment was there. It was the thought that counted on that one.
Dude, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, brother.
Dude, thank you for having me.
Friends for life, man.
Friends for life, dude.
You already know. Hey, y'all, if you liked the episode, if you made it this far, do me a favor, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Instagram at Dojo Outfitters, at ChickenBoneBJJ, at Kevin Hughes 10P.
That's right.
We out this.
Later.
Peace.